You're listening to the Allman Report on NewsTalkSTL.
Well. Happy Halloween, everyone. This is the Allman Report, Common Sense Radio, on this Thursday Halloween night. Good evening this evening. 101.9, 94.1, and really super happy to be with you this evening. I'm sure hopefully you're getting like trick-or-treaters and stuff. I love Halloween night, and I used to live in a neighborhood where, it was like a big event. Like, people would be in their driveways. I love that whole vibe. The adults would get beer or something like that, and people would set up in their driveway, maybe a little fire pit or something like that. That's always so much fun. Ethan, do you remember those days? Did you ever do that? Was there ever a neighborhood where that happened? Or
Oh, yeah. I mean, my old neighborhood definitely still does that.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
I love that. I love Halloween. I used to, and what's crazy is back in the day, like when I was a kid, being youngest of six and everything else. So we just had some big wooden chest of costumes, like old ape masks and stuff like that. Ape masks were like 20 years old and deteriorating or whatever and things. And we weren't, my parents, they weren't going to be buying us Halloween costumes, every year. So you kind of got what you got. I think I was a hobo like 7 times.
Hey, look, that's good in my opinion.
Yeah.
Some people try to get too clever with their costumes, and they just like dress up as some. Oh, I saw a costume. Somebody who's Tony Soprano from The Sopranos. You can't really tell they're in costume because he wears a wife beater, right, and trousers.
Right.
So
yeah.
I think just a good old Frankenstein mask, is good.
Something
honestly.
like that, and what's funny is that like when the girls were little with my kids, they love Disney and everything else, and so they dress up as one of the Disney characters, and I would always dress up as the prince, and I'd be the one to take him around. Andrew would stay home and do the candy, and I'd be the one to take him around, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, I did it up. I love Halloween, and so as the kids get older, though, their interest kind of wanes, and I bought one pumpkin this year. I still have this that I bought from Walgreens a long, long time ago. Walgreens was always great, not as good as they used to be now, but it was always a ton of fun. It did it up, and now I live in a neighborhood where hardly anybody trick or treats, and it's just kind of a bummer sometimes, a little bit. But I just always loved Halloween, and I know some people are like, it's Satan's day. It's like, nah, whatever. I don't really care. All right, so people of the American dream. So what's going on now is you're seeing, and I'm gonna cheer you up because on this evening, as you're sitting at home, I'm hoping you're listening on the radio, or if you are podcasting the show or watching it on social media, I really want to play for you the entire Donald Trump garbage truck explanation, because you guys know how much I love to play Trump oftentimes in his entirety, because the riffing is worth all the time in the world. I love this guy when he goes off and explains things and does things so naturally, so glibly, so jocularly. And I love when he does that. And oftentimes what happens is it comes out and then you only hear like a little clip, because many of these shows and these TV shows, they don't have time to play the whole clip, whatever. But I have time. And I'm going to let you hear it, because as we get closer to the election, you're seeing all these doomsday things. You're seeing all the people who are the Kamala surrogates, and including the media, starting not only to go after Trump, obviously, in a serious way, but now they're targeting you. So they're targeting you as a Nazi. They're targeting you as garbage. Mark Cuban on The View today is targeting women who support Donald Trump.
You never see him around strong, intelligent women, ever. It's just that simple.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is Mark Cuban is a sexist pig, first of all. And aside from all the many women that Donald Trump has been around who are very intelligent, Congresswoman Stefanik, Tulsi Gabbard, people like that, people who he's had in his midst, he's elevated more women to higher positions corporately as well as electorally than any other man has, a Republican has at least. And Mark Cuban is again insulting them and, of course, ignores Melania, who, speaks 5 languages, I think it is. Melania is superiorly intelligent, certainly more intelligent than any of these harpies on The View, and probably more intelligent than Mark Cuban's wife, daughters, whatever. And yet here he is on his perch with The View deciding to go ahead and zoom this one in instead of appearing on The View and just totally cratering what's ever left of the credibility of the Kamala Harris campaign as they start to go crazy. Walz's wife is starting to do it now, and we'll talk more about that because she's bat crazy. Bat, you know what, crazy. And she's starting to do it. Walz has been doing it because this is exactly what happened back in 2016. That's when you can tell they sense they're losing. And so they're starting to come after you. But this is all stuff that we're used to, all stuff that we know is coming. They've been calling us deplorable since 2016. So we get all that racist, I mean, you name it, sexist, homophobic, all those kinds of things, which aren't true. Nobody's believing it. There's a whole generation, for instance, of the black male voters who don't believe anything that they've been told by the media and the Democratic Party. And so this only thing that I'm really concerned about, this one devastating pullback of an endorsement, people, reggaeton singer Nicky Jam has withdrawn his endorsement of Donald Trump. He's of Puerto Rican descent. You know, over that comedian thing that I've already explained was not a good idea, but, oh, I know, you're thinking, who the hell is Nicky Jam? I don't know either. So that's the he pulls it. It's like making headlines. Nicky Jam pulls his support from Donald Trump. It's like, who the hell is Nicky Jam? And certainly a lot of these Puerto Rican supporters, they're not listening to people like these guys anymore. And plus, they know this was a comedian. They know the campaign just kind of separated itself, and wisely so, from his stuff. But come on. Crazy. I'm going to ask this without knowing the answer ahead of time. Ethan Valencia, do you know who Nicky Jam is?
No, I hate to tell you.
I don't either.
Nope, I'm looking him up right now, and I gotta say,
yeah, this is
no idea.
Big news. It's on all the tiles of the main news, like Bing News and Google News and Drudge Report and all this kind of stuff, as if it's a thing, like as if we know who the hell this guy is. Anyway, I want to get you some entertainment here. This was last night. And, you know, President Trump, of course, does his rally in the orange vest that he's wearing on the garbage truck. And he tells the story, which is, again, I'm going to let you hear it. It's 5 minutes long practically, but I want you to hear it because it really is just so fun to listen to. And you can tell President Trump is having fun. And as Jim Talent famously told us this week, I think it was, last week, that President Trump's having fun because their internal numbers are showing high numbers, poll numbers for them. I think we're getting some word that there are a couple. Michigan is in a full state of tie, which actually is good news for President Trump. Michigan was largely considered to be Kamala Harris territory, especially with that weird governor and especially with all the shenanigans they're pulling with some of the voting. But that's tied now, and you can tell President Trump's at this stage now where he's sailing in, and all these other people are going crazy and being dark and mean and condescending and vicious while President Trump's having fun.
So this outfit, is when he called us all garbage. How stupid! What a stupid word. That blows deplorable.
And by the way, he when he's telling the story, make sure you listen to the facts. I don't want to keep interrupting, and I do that too often, I guess. But that his campaign, as I've said over the past month or so, whoever is engineering these appearances and doing his campaign, putting the ads up in the Trump war room, these guys really know what they're doing. They're doing a fabulous job. And they're obviously suggesting things to President Trump that are absolute money. And the best part about it is that President Trump is agreeing to it. And so he tells a story, but wrapped inside that story is how I think expertly this campaign is being handled. I think better than 2016, certainly better than 2020. I think that these guys are at the top of their game.
Wait, don't you think? Of course, I thought irredeemable when she said deplorable or irredeemable. I thought irredeemable was actually worse, but deplorable seemed to catch up. But this garbage stuff blows it away. So I'm in this beautiful plane. I'm enjoying myself. I have a wonderful suit on.
Oh.
And one of my people came in and said, "Sir, the word garbage is the hottest thing right now out there. The hottest thing out there. Sir, would you like to drive a garbage truck?"
That's great. He's got good people with him.
Now, we're about, 30 minutes from landing. We had to do this pretty quick. I said, it's sort of cool, though, isn't it? Because, and I said, I think that's okay, but, I don't feel comfortable wearing a suit. And they pulled up this garbage truck. I don't know how the hell they did it so fast. I have very capable people.
Yeah, you do.
They put a big sign on the truck. Did you see it? I think they showed it.
Trump sign on the garbage truck.
And then they said, "Sir, we have a vest." I said, "Well, should I leave my suit on and put it over the vest?" But that doesn't look very good, right? That doesn't look good. So I said, "All right, look, let me take it off." And then I actually said, I climbed into the truck, but so I said, "How the hell do you get into this truck? It's way up high." It's this was a beauty. I said, "You didn't have to buy it that big, right? You have to get it that big?" They brought this brand new, gorgeous truck, wonderful driver. He looked like Cary Grant in his prime. You know who that is?
So apparently they bought a garbage truck or maybe rented it or something. But the thing was brand new. And Trump's talking about having to try to get up on the stair and all that stuff and it's to step up there. Then he's got the guy who is the garbage truck driver he's talking about.
This beautiful driver. And he drove that big thing up. And I said, "Man, this is bad because now I have all the cameras are all what? Look at all the fake news. They were most of them." No, most of them, many of them were there. And I'm saying, oh boy, one little mistake with these guys and your political career's over. You can't even. So I said, man, if I don't get up there, this is going to be very embarrassing. These stupid people, they'll say, he's cognitively and physically impaired.
I love this.
And I can't do that when I'm alongside of this great athlete. I got to get up to that. So look, the first stair is like up here. I'm saying, shit. So I had the adrenaline going and I made it. I made it. And then I gave a little news conference from the front of they asked their wise guy questions and everything. And then we drove about 2 feet. I got out, got into the plane. And then I got in the car and I'm driving over here and I have this still on.
And the fact of the matter is he's not making more of it than it is, right? So he says we drove like 2 feet, and then I got out and got back into the car. So the guy's so authentic that he's not going to even pretend it's anything more than a stunt, an entertaining one as that it is. And so he doesn't have, we drove like 2 feet and then I got out. So he's honest about all this stuff. It's so refreshing. And the way he tells the story is so authentic as well. And he's so right about, if I just missed a step, they were going to make a big deal about it, just like they would with Biden and everything else. And he's having fun with it, though, of course. And now he's at the phase where he's, out of the car, into the car, and they're starting to plan the actual rally appearance and everything else.
And I come into the arena, and I say, where's my jacket? I want to get out of this stage. And they said, it would be unbelievable if you could wear it on stage. I said,
I mean, and again, those are great people he has around him. Obviously, he trusts them. And obviously, he is a gamer, and they are too. And they're telling him, hey, why don't you wear it on stage? And I got to tell you, Trump is a very buttoned up guy. You never see him without a tie. Occasionally, you might see pictures of him on the golf course, whatever. But he's a very buttoned up guy. He watches how he appears and everything else. So the fact that they got him to wear this vest at the rally was really great. And the fact that he agreed to it is even funnier. Just the way they kind of like put it to him, like, it'd be really great if you could wear that on stage.
Arena, and I say, where's my jacket? I want to get out of this stage. And they said, it would be unbelievable if you could wear it on stage. I said, and I said, no way. I got 25,000 people standing outside. I got all these people here. There's no way I'm wearing it on stage. They said, oh, okay, sir. I said, get me my jacket. But if you did, it actually makes you look thinner. I said, and they got me. I said, I want to wear it on stage. When they said I look thinner, I said, in that case, I'll wear it on stage. I may never wear a blue jacket again. I may go in this. I said that was the word. That was the key.
He wears it all the time.
So anyway, we had a little fun about a very serious subject. We had a little fun about a time where our country is not having a lot of fun because we're not doing well as a country, but we're going to be doing well very shortly. I promise you.
Yeah. So anyway, there you have it. And it's so funny that he even said, well, maybe I'll just wear this all the time now, which actually would be great. I'm not quite sure how that would work out or what you guys would think about that. But just for the hell of it, only 1, 2, 3, 4 days before the actual election day. And it'd be funny if we all did this. Because remember yesterday, I was telling you, there's got to be some way to capitalize on this. Remember I talked about the whole garbage can costume and everything else, Ethan? But then I realized they're so much smarter than I am. They're like, let's just do this and have the vest, which you can get like at any truck stop or hardware store or whatever. Maybe that's what we ought to be doing now.
There's still enough time to do a costume based on this.
Oh, yeah.
Well, at the time of the show, there might not be, but
well, yeah, you can do it if you guys are thinking about running out and grabbing some candy. The Adam Sandler. I don't know whether you guys remember the Adam Sandler thing from Saturday Night Live, where he talked about all the costumes you could make on the fly. I'll have to find that because it's really super funny, and they're like protractors and all kinds of stuff. It's pretty funny. I'm gonna play it for you. You will not have heard it before, Ethan, because of your age. You're a young man.
No, I'm looking forward to it.
But
Yeah.
but you'll love this one because it's and if you like Adam Sandler's sense of humor, you'll really dig
Well,
it. So,
I like the Lunch Lady song that he
Oh,
does.
yeah.
So that's my exposure.
yeah, right, exactly. So I'll have that for you later on because it's Halloween. So let's have a little fun. And then also, one of the reasons again, CNN is back. Our buddy Harry Enton is back with some numbers that will show you why the Trump campaign, the Vance campaign, why they're having so much fun and seemingly so relaxed. By the way, people, it's not fun to have a tree that you have to have taken down because you're daunted by the pricing of it. Well, Hanson's Tree Service is already a price performer when it comes to taking trees out, but they're making it even easier for you. Chad has come up with a financing option for you taking a tree down, because the philosophy here is you don't want to. It is a blustery day today, and you're kind of sensing that a little bit because you don't want to possibly risk bodily injury or injury to your property just because you don't have the funds to outlay immediately to take a tree down. When a tree needs to be taken down, a tree needs to be taken down. There's no waiting. And so get the tree taken down with Hanson's Tree Service, financing it, which is really super easy and totally affordable, and get that stuff taken care of so you don't have to risk everything just because you can't immediately afford an out-of-pocket expense for a tree takedown. So that's another way that Chad Hanson is building, once again, this wonderful business started by his late, great, amazing father, Jeff. And Chad's a proud supporter of free, common sense, conservative radio, as he always has. And I hope for all of your yard needs, your tree needs, your mulching needs, all that kind of stuff, you turn to Chad Hanson. And also don't forget deadwooding and pruning is very important as well. Check it out on the web. It's hansonstree.com, hansonstree.com.
You're listening to the Allman Report on NewsTalkSTL.
Good evening, everyone, and happy Halloween to all of you and yours. This is the Allman Report, News Talk STL on this. I hope the weather changed just in time, too, because it's perfect weather for Halloween, you know. Not too cold, but it's not sunny and all that stuff. It's kind of got that little Halloween-y type of vibe to it. Jimmy Carafano on the way, by the way, as I just told you yesterday, common sense is sweeping the world. And I've got yet another example for you. Before we get to that, though, as promised, so Ethan here, this is from way back in the day, and Adam Sandler's last-minute Halloween costume ideas.
And now, here with a report on how to stretch your Halloween dollar is Weekend Update correspondent Adam Sandler. Adam?
Oh, thank you. Halloween is coming and it's always loads of fun. But we have to remember, we're living in a recession and money is tight. So don't go bugging your parents for these new overpriced costumes. They're such a ripoff. If you want an original, scary Halloween costume, use your imagination. What's wrong with just using your face? You can go as Squishy Man.
He's squeezing his face now.
I'm Squishy Man. I want some candy. Give some candy to Squishy Man.
Just goes up somebody squeezes.
Or maybe you can go as G-Force Man. Hey, I'm G-Force Man.
He's pulling his
cheeks
back.
Too fast. Now give it some candy. Come on. Give it here. You know what? You can just use your own T-shirt. Go as Crazy One-Arm Man. Hey, look at me. I only got one arm and I'm crazy. Now give me some candy.
Push your
I'll
T-shirt.
grab you with my crazy one arm. Or how about going as Crazy Hand coming out of the neck guy? Hey, I'm Crazy Hand coming out of the neck guy.
The hand comes out of the...
Give me some candy. Don't you think I deserve some for being this crazy? Or how about going as Crazy No-Armed Woman? I want some candy.
So you know what he's doing is fist.
Candy. Everybody knows the crazy woman with no arms just loves candy. Now give it to me or I'll rip your ear off. Arr, arr. You can use something that's in your house even. How about a spoon? I'm Crazy Spoonhead.
Puts a spoon on the top of his head.
I don't have a normal head. I got a damn spoon growing out of it. Now give me some crazy candy, damn it. Oh, ooh, this spoon makes me crazy. Or just use a plant from somebody's yard. Hey, I'm Crazy Plant Head. How about some candy? Come on, I'm crazy, and I got a plant coming out of my head. Don't leave Crazy Plant Head hanging. He needs some candy too. Or Crazy Plant Arm. Hey, look at this. I got a plant coming out of my arm. Isn't that bizarre? I am crazy, I am deformed, and I am hungry. Now give me some candy.
How about this? I'm Cuphead. Cuphead, hey, I'm Cuphead. I want some candy. Hey, give me some candy. I'm Cuphead. Something like that. That's Adam Sandler, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, and then at one point he like talks about he grabs a protractor because he did this like every Halloween for like 3 years. He'll grab a protractor like from the junk drawer, And I'm Crazy Protractor Man, and he puts the protractor up to his head, up to his eyes. Oh, anyway, you gotta kind of see it to like it. All right, here's some good news, people. Like I told you, this comes to us from CNN again. Our buddy Harry Enton, who is the guy that always seems to turn the CNN left-wing crazy anchors ashen-faced with his numbers. Check this out.
Just 28% of Americans, voters, think the country is going in the right direction, is on the right track. And I want you to put that into a historical perspective for you. Okay, what's the average percentage of the public that thinks that the country is on the right track when the incumbent party loses. It's 25%. That 25% looks an awful bit like that 28% up there. It doesn't look anything like this 42% doesn't look anything like this 28%. So the bottom line is, very few Americans think the country is on the right track at this particular point. It tracks much more with when the incumbent party loses than with it wins. In fact, I went back through history. There isn't a single time in which 28% of the American public thinks the country is going on the right track in which the incumbent party actually won. They always lose when just 28% of the country believes that the country is on the right track.
And that happened in 2020, even though I do think there was a healthy amount of cheating. And I think in some cases it made the difference in certain states. He continues.
You are swimming upstream if you're trying to win in this environment. Also, President Biden, on a micro level, a lot of the coverage today is over something President Biden said. On the macro level, what kind of a weight is he on the Harris campaign?
Yeah, so, Joe Biden isn't on the ballot, but he's certainly in the minds of Americans, right? So I went back and I looked, okay, was the successor of the same party when the president's net approval rating was negative at this point, which Joe Biden's most definitely is? He's 15 points underwater. Now, we don't know if Kamala Harris is going to succeed Joe Biden, but we know back in 2008, George W. Bush, his approval rating was down in the 20s. Did a Republican succeed George W. Bush? No. How about in 1968? Lyndon Baines Johnson, his net approval rating was negative. Did a Democrat succeed Lyndon Baines Johnson? No. How about in 52? Harry S. Truman, his approval rating was in the 20s, if not the upper teens. Did a Democrat succeed Harry S. Truman in 52? My memory, no.
So yeah, you have the situation. It was great because each case where these presidents, these outgoing presidents, had low numbers, the party that they represented did not win. So 2008, obviously, 1968, it was Nixon and Truman at that point, too, Eisenhower. So this all is factual. It's all historical, and it doesn't bode well numerically for Kamala Harris. Obviously, they could break all trends, but keep in mind, even as this anchor said, they'd have to break pretty much every trend that has ever been established historically to win.
No, as Kate Baldwin says.
Diana.
Separate.
Well,
close.
I mean, obviously, if in this case, all the same, I mean, let's put it this way. If the Yankees can blow a game and choke after winning 5-0 and wind up losing the game and losing the World Series, I guess anything can happen, but you'd have to have some kind of monumental failure on the part of the Trump campaign. And as you all can see, there's no such semblance of any kind of small failure on the part of the Trump campaign. They're winning every single argument, it seems, and no one's listening to the media anymore, and no one is listening to the Democrats anymore. Anyway, I want to make sure I break here. Coming back with the great Jim Carafano. As I said, the Make America Great Again vibe, the common sense conservatism is sweeping not only across the nation, but also across the world. I'll ask Jimmy about that on the other side of this, and it's really great news. Lots of positivity tonight on this Halloween evening here at News Talk STL, the Allman Report.
You're listening to the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
Happy Halloween, everybody. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL 101.9 and 94.1. And the great Jimmy Carafano, the Heritage Foundation, heritage.org, here joining me now. And one of the running themes, Jimmy, of our conversation over the past couple of weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, is seemingly this growing trend towards conservatism, or even common sense, if we want to call it that, across the world. So we have Argentina, we have Hungary, we have Italy. We now even have the EU considering Trump-like tariffs against China. We could talk about that. And now I'm seeing this headline that the Liberal Democratic Party of Japan has lost its majority for the first time in 15 years. They've been ruling for half a century, by the way, but lost its majority for the first time in 15 years. Those were the elections on Sunday that I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to. Are you seeing this? Is it what kind of bellwether is this, my friend? And happy Halloween, by the way.
Well, so I'll tell you the most interesting thing, which is something I didn't think about. Like a call from a French reporter yesterday at Le Mans. And he goes, talk to me about Elon Musk and Giorgia Meloni, who's, the prime minister of Italy. And I hadn't really actually, but the more I thought about that, because I think Meloni has emerged as probably one of the most effective conservative leader in Europe. And you're right, you have Malay and Latin America, but, Modi in India. Now we'll see what happens in Japan, but I said, I actually think, because, Elon is kind of the bridge between Meloni also and Trump. And I said, you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of Reagan, Thatcher, and John Paul. You have two political leaders on either side of the Atlantic leading this conservative kind of resurgence. And okay, John Paul is a religious leader. Elon Musk is a private sector civil society leader. But I kind of see that triangular dynamic working in a really similar way. And we always talk about Thatcher and Reagan and John Paul as if they did everything together. But they rode a wave and they had partners. So yeah, I do see this as a rising force. And what's interesting is, if we're honest about it, it's not because we're like super good at this and we're all organized and we're spending billions of dollars. It's a consequence of two things. One is the left being so aggressive in this, and people like George Soros and Open Society flooding the zone with money, but also people seeing the consequences and the impact that on their everyday life. And then leaders stepping up, like a Meloni, and we should change Trump's name to Mump so we could have Malay, Meloni, Musk.
Well, and that's really sage of you to hearken back to the Thatcher, John Paul II, and Reagan days. I never would have thought about that, but man, you're so right. And I'm noticing that unlike it was in 2016, when President Trump was not a known quantity foreign relations-wise, there were people from Europe and other countries kind of chiming in on the election. And unless I'm mistaken, I don't really see a whole lot of that going on right now. They certainly haven't been campaigning for Joe Biden or even opining about it. And it seems to me there's almost kind of like this de facto hope that Trump wins. I don't know.
Well, yeah, as you know, I spend a lot of time traveling, and actually, I'm just back from Europe, and I don't think your assessment is really far off. Trump is a known quantity, and even many Europeans that don't like him know they can work with him. So you should expect two things. On the one hand, don't expect that Trump, if he wins, to derangement syndrome to go away, because they got nothing else. And they will pound on this stuff for 4 years. So they'll be screaming every day that, Chicken Little, that the world is coming to an end. But while they're doing that, I do agree with you. You have both one is a league of conservative leaders that actually will enthusiastically want to work with Donald Trump. and other leaders who, much like people that vote for Donald Trump, but they don't tell you in public, will understand they can work with Donald Trump and actually achieve pretty good outcomes. And actually, I was just at a meeting talking about Europe, and it was amazing. We weren't. Nobody was representing the campaign. Nobody was speaking for the candidate. And we actually said, well, what happens if Harris wins? What happens if Trump wins? But it's really amazing how I heard from really kind of competent Europeans saying like, oh yeah, we could work with this. So I think that is really quite encouraging.
Yeah, and what's interesting too, and I think you've told us the answer to this beforehand, but I want to ask again. So we've got these countries that you name, India, Hungary, Argentina, Italy, to a certain level, Japan in this case. What is it? Because they're all seemingly representing a part of just one continent, so to speak. And so the other countries have not quite come on board. What is it about these countries where what runs through the water, so to speak, philosophically, in each of these separate countries?
Well, where you see a conservative resurgence, and it's not exactly the same everywhere. I mean, it's not. But when I go around, there are issues that I do hear in common, and there's three of them, and they're actually not terribly surprising to probably a lot of your listeners. One is energy. That this green stuff is a total grab for power. It's destroying the economy. It's killing jobs. It's creating energy poverty. This nonsense has got to stop. So that's one. People want reliable, affordable, abundant energy, period. The second one is migration and border security. Nobody wants to deal with this. And they want to solve their population issues by encouraging families and traditional family and people having children and growing families. So that's the second one. And the third one is the woke issues. You would be surprised and how many places in Africa and in Latin America, in Europe, that people say the gender thing is a threat to our culture and our family and our freedoms and our values. This is creeping over into freedom of speech and using lawfare to suppress people. So these are super things in common. The other thing that's interesting, because you talk to a lot of Europeans, and they love, even the ones that we love the read agenda. We think there ought to be 82 genders, right? But when you get down to hardcore geopolitical issues, they're like, we recognize the challenge of the rise of China and how that's going to destroy our security and our traditional way of life and our economy. And we recognize we need to do something about that. So the dealing with China issue is also something that you see in common law. Shockingly, Brazil, which has a super liberal government, but it's an interesting country because a lot of Brazil is actually quite conservative. It's kind of like America. If you take California and New York out of the mix, you basically have a conservative country. In Brazil, if you take one part of the country out of the mix, the rest of the country, would vote for Donald Trump. They just turned down an invitation to join the Belt and Road Initiative. So even in Brazil, there was kind of, a little queasiness in dealing with the Chinese. So, you don't want to say that it's a new dawn, but I think globally conservatives, not because conservatives have gotten together like George Soros and paid everybody to go, march in the streets and camp out in university parking lots, but because people recognize threats to their basic way of life. We see this kind of common rise of the tide, much in the way that at the end of the Cold War, people were just fed up with the Soviet Union, fed up with the captive nations, were just fed up with this occupation. And people had just decided they had enough. So your assessment may be right.
Well, I noticed the EU, and I know you don't have much time here, but just in a couple of minutes we have left, I noticed the EU Commission decided they were going to go ahead and pursue tariffs against China to save actually their EV industry. Because they're all into the EVs over there, and apparently China's flooding the market with a bunch of cheap EVs, and so they're thinking of protectionism against China, even if it is just for their EV industry. They're still concerned enough about China to go ahead and do that, which is something unusual for the European Union.
It it's like turning the corner and running into your buddy. The Europeans are coming at this from a very different direction on dealing with China. And if you ask, does Trump do anything right? They'll say, oh, of course not. But we're kind of inching towards winding up in the same place.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I heard a European say that yesterday. Goes, this is interesting. It's like we didn't agree with you on anything, but look where we're winding up. We're winding up right where you are.
Interesting. Very interesting. I love that. That's a good way to wrap it up, my friend. And thank you. Welcome back to America, my buddy. And can't wait to talk to you
glad to be here
next week. All right, my brother. That is
a great trick or treat.
Yes, thank you. That is the great Jim Carafano there at heritage.org. Did you hear that, though? Because I said this yesterday because it's so interesting that, we aren't into the EV revolution here. But that's all that Europe is doing. I mean, a lot of it's primarily, I explained all that yesterday. But I love Jim's analogy about, turning the corner and running into your buddy. It's kind of like, oh, there you are, but coming from different places. And so they're all green revolutionaries, EV guys, but they still are okay with the Chinese tariffs because they come in handy. No matter what your certain business industrial proclivity might be, China will always find a way to undercut whatever it is you're doing. Even if you're going green, they'll come in and go green underneath you. Or in our case, we'll do this. They'll come in and go in underneath you. Also, to Jimmy's point regarding Italy, it's pretty interesting. If you go on the internet, you could find this. So in Italy, there are a lot of Italians that are more inland in a lot of these smaller towns that are selling their homes for like $1, with the caveat that you must, A, restore the homes, keep the homes stable, and never sell the home because they want to keep their communities together. They're so interested in preserving the heritage, whether it be in architecture or whatever else, that people can buy homes for $1 in Italy and renovate them, do whatever. You can't change the outside, but you have to kind of renovate the inside, get it all done to keep that house and that look and that stability in a lot of these smaller communities that are being not necessarily abandoned, but, young people are going into Rome and they're going into the city. They're going to, you know how it is. Like a lot of places, the young people don't stay and they leave these days. And so they're not keeping that family home up. And so some families, knowing that they are up against it, are going to do what's right for their home and their heritage, and that is sell these homes for like $1. So there's your new thing, people. You move to Italy in your $1 home. You can do the show from there. I think we can figure out the technology somehow. But I'd have to be like in some smaller Italian town, but not sure I'd be really necessarily averse to that. I just love America too much to leave America, so we'll figure it out. All right, people, this is the Allman Report on News Talk STL. Happy Halloween to you all. Some more fun and frivolity on the other side of this on News Talk STL. This is the Allman Report.
You're listening to the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
Old black magic has me in a spell.
Oh, black magic that you weave so well.
Those icy fingers up and down my spine.
The same old witchcraft when your eyes meet mine.
Good evening, everyone.
Same old tingle that I feel inside.
Happy Halloween to you all.
Elevator starts its ride.
Down and down I go.
Did you ever do the,
Like a leaf.
of course, this is guy get a little old manish, but
I should stay away, but what can
you ever have the thing where people would put like, oh, by the way, that's Louis Prima and Keely Smith, the greatest team ever, or one of them at least. You ever have this, Ethan, when you go and have you ever had anybody do the wise guy thing where you have a bowl and it's like hard boiled eggs and you know people and you have like a little cover on it with a slit through it, and the kids are supposed to grab the candy that way, but it's all slimy. You put a little olive oil on it, and you're like, eyeballs.
You know, we did that at grade school, and
okay.
I got to tell you, I was too scared to participate. I don't know, man. I knew that it was probably just food in there, but
Yeah.
I didn't do that.
It's pretty. Well, I think the one that's really good is where you just put spaghetti noodles in there, and the kids stick their hand in there like guts. You know.
Oh yeah,
That kind of stuff.
Nope, didn't do it, and I wouldn't probably do it now either.
Yeah, yeah. I was never though into, like, for instance, I know some people do this, but we'd never do. I mean, my family never decorated anything. I'm surprised that I became such a prolific decorator for the holidays. So I mean, I decorate for Thanksgiving, even on my lawn and stuff, and and my Christmas decorations, which you all know famously. And Halloween, but I never really got into like the graveyard stuff, like the skeletons. I think it's because the kids never really like that, like putting like headstones and stuff on your lawn and that kind of stuff. But I think the scary stuff is really fun, like the ones that like the witches and stuff that speak to you, and or the motion detector witches and things like that, or motion detector skeletons or whatever.
Oh, it's unbelievable what they have now. And, and people in U City would do it, where I grew up. People still put those, all of everything you just said.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and you'd rather be, sometimes the tendency would be, well, maybe I'll just do it live. I'll do a live version of it. And then you're always worried, well, you're going to get punched or some kid's going to like whack you or something if they get too scared. So you're like, kind of like, I'm not going to.
Oh, it could happen.
Do that, So anyway. And then, of course, back in the day, I forgot to say about the pillowcases, because so back in the day, once you got a little too old, to have a costume necessarily, you would just like get some face paint or something and then just carry a pillowcase around. And people would give you candy back in the day, and Missouri, for some reason, I don't know, St. Louis particularly, actually does the trick or treat thing. So you have to tell a joke every time. And so, like, why didn't the skeleton cross the road? Well, because he didn't have any guts, that kind of thing. But everybody demands that the kids tell a joke before they give him candy. Where when we were kids, we just go by and people would go, here, take that, and just you'd leave. But now you have to perform. It's kind of a St. Louis thing, I think.
The rumor that I hear is that is a St. Louis exclusive.
Yeah. Oh, you do?
Telling the joke is a St. Louis exclusive event.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Why would they call it trick or treat if they didn't expect you to,
do
a trick? So
I don't know why it became a trend. It wasn't always that case. Like when I was a kid, it wasn't always that case. But, and then then you had all the people who would do, like popcorn balls and stuff like that. And then of course, you also had the totally fake news razor blade in the apple or candy thing. Like there was like I don't think that ever actually happened. I don't think there's one example of anybody actually putting a razor blade in a piece of candy. But remember, there were, like, even back in the old days, like in the 90s, it was a particularly freak out thing where the police departments would all have, come, bring your candy by for us to inspect it. It's like, really? You know, I mean, God love the police for doing that. I'm just saying that, you know, they take it by, you know, the firehouse and we'll inspect your candy for safety. It's like, ugh.
Did they run it through a metal detector?
I have no idea.
That would be something. You can find those racers.
I never did it. I would never, like, take my kids' candy to an inspection site. At that point, you might as well give up on Halloween. If you really can't trust people that much, you know, just you might as well just forget it at that point because, you know, taking it by, yeah, I think they did. I think they had, like, X-ray, like a airport scanner or something, you know? So,
my goodness.
I'm not kidding you. Like some kind of X-ray machine or maybe a metal. I don't know. But it was just so weird, and everybody would just be like all freaked out about it and everything else. But I don't think there's ever been one example of a razor blade in an apple or candy. But I'll tell you one thing: when I was a kid, I was scared to death of that. It's like everybody was like really, that's why. So you never, like, even if you got an apple and people putting apples, it's so charming to put an apple in there, but nobody's going to eat an apple that they're given by a neighbor, you know, or a popcorn ball, you know. Oh, there's always that one old lady who gave us the popcorn balls, and God love her because they get to make those. So, you know, that's what it's all about. Just give me some Starbursts. That's what, you know, Starbursts are great because they're really easy to steal from the kids because they don't come in packs. And so what happens is they put all the Starbursts in a bowl and you just grab a handful of it, whatever. And then the kids, unless your kids count your Starburst, which, you know, you have control over that. Just don't let them count their Starburst. So, no, we're not going to count our candy right now. It's too late. Got to go to bed. Because the Starburst, unless you go overboard, you have to be very, very artful about stealing the Starburst from the kids. You can't do it like by the handful. You got to do that one day and then wait maybe a day, take another, maybe one or two. They'll never know. So, but the Starbursts are very easy to steal, and I appreciate that trend because I love Starburst. All right, people. So this is interesting. So Gwen Walls, you know, Walls has a wife, and she's basically, as somebody said, nutty as squirrel poop. I can't stand that, but anyway, she says, and she's apparently crazy and a liability because Kamala Harris and Doug don't want her around anywhere. So at one point, they were supposed to go to Maine to a campaign event, and she was going to go with Tim, and then apparently something derailed her plans. The Harris campaign basically said, hey, don't go to Maine. You're a little overbearing. You know, if you don't mind, we would rather have you not go to Maine because apparently Tim Walz was bat crap crazy enough that they didn't need two of these people. And so we've got some receipts for you if you want to make this calculation. But there's a reason why she's not out there on the campaign because and heaven forbid she winds up in a administration leading this country, my Lord. So here's where she's on with a person on a podcast defending tampons in boys' bathrooms. So Tim Walz has had to pretend he never said that and never supported it. And yet she's, on the other hand, going out there and saying, what a great idea.
And if kids are hungry in school, what that does to brain and learning, you're not going to learn to read. So if you're talking about learning to read and closing gaps, then you better take away the barriers for that. If that's tampons, then that's tampons.
Yeah. Tampons, by having them in boys' bathrooms, it supports learning, according to Gwen Walls. Now, of course, never mind that in Minnesota, record low scores. Nearly half of Minnesota's schools are facing budget shortfalls under the governorship of Tim Walz. But this doesn't help to take away the fact that Tim Walz is crazy, you know, when she's out there boasting about how tampons in boys' bathrooms are what take away barriers to learning. And this is Gwen with a teacher, and she puts this tweet out. A couple of English teachers with an important reminder to you.
Hi, this is Gwen. And Jill. And we are right here in Michigan, and we just wrapped up a great Women for Harris event. And we wanted to remind everyone to make a plan to vote.
We're both moms, and I'm a grandmom, and we know how busy you are.
Your vote is your voice. Go to iwillvote.com and find your polling place and voting hours.
So that's her with Jill. There's two English teachers with a message for everybody. And plus, the weird thing is, and I don't mean to be too personal about it, because I know, but she is bug-eyed and kind of comes across as a little nuts. And then this is Gwen Walls talking, and the Trump War Room has actually put this one out because she's talking about how she takes a mixer with her in her suitcase, in her luggage, when she's traveling, so she can, I guess, cook while she's out and about,
I usually just throw that in. Mixer is a hand mixer, and I usually just throw that in my suitcase. You never know when you're going to need a good mixer. Mixer is a hand mixer, and I usually just throw that in my suitcase. You never know when you're going to need a good mixer.
Now, when I first saw this, I was thinking to myself that he was talking about like a mixer for the tequila she brings with her or something, and then I'd be like, oh, I could see that, or the vodka, whatever. I thought at that point when I first saw it, oh, Gwen Walls always brings a mixer with her whenever she's traveling. I'm like, oh, good, she knows how to prepare with her traveling bar. But it turns out it's a mixer for cooking and doing things, which is, where does that come from? So anyway, that's why you're not seeing too much of Gwen Walls. Just a funny little thing here on this Halloween night. Grasser Electric, people, proud sponsors of free, common sense, conservative radio. Ladies and gentlemen, don't ever be caught without your lights on. And they have 24-hour service now with Grasser Electric. On top of that, Shane Grasser, they do commercial work for you. They do residential work for you. There's no job that's too big or too small. And, electricians, man, I'm telling you, nowadays, you got to be very competitive, pricing and beyond. You got to be people who aren't going to tell people when they call up, oh, it's going to be 2 weeks. That kind of stuff doesn't happen with Grasser Electric. He's staffed well. He's got enough people. They're ready to rock and roll. They'll get you in quickly and get the job taken care of. And in emergency situations, they'll take care of it basically overnight. That's how it all works, because they have 24-hour service for you, and you know how valuable that can be. If you guys have a list of things that you've wanted to get around to doing, and sometimes it's very simple. It might be as simple as putting in a dimmer, but that dimmer is on a list of 10 things you got to do. My buddy Shane, who is the electrician that usually shows up at my house, he can come by and just give him a half a day. He'll take care of all that stuff for you. And I say half a day very lightly, because normally he does things so fast. I'm talking about half a day to do like a whole list of things. But otherwise, he comes in, identifies the problem, gets it taken care of, lickety-splickety. These guys never camp out in your house. I can guarantee you that. GrasserElectric.com, GrasserElectric.com.
You're listening to the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
I cut my teeth on wedding rings in the movies, and I'm not proud of my address. In a torn up town, no postcode envy, but every song's like.
Good evening, everyone, and happy Halloween to all of you and yours. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL. Jamie Allman here, really pleased and privileged to be with you, and thank you for joining me and spending your Halloween night with me in between handing candy out to the kids and doing whatever. So you guys are thinking, I'm thinking, that maybe the Trump victory that we expect on Tuesday is going to only come really from these itinerant common sense people, which I believe it will. We can forget about the establishment Republicans. They're not going to be with us then. They haven't been with us before. They've screwed us, betrayed us. We're going to win without them, and then we're going to cast them out to sea. But we're going to depend a lot on the union people, on the LGBT community, on Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, suburban women, you and me, men and women, white, black, whatever. We're all one coalescence of common sense, and we will be pushing Donald Trump over the finish line. One thing that you might have not calculated as an aspect of a Trump victory is the growing feeling and also the actual reporting on this, that there are a lot of mainstream liberals out there, some of them in the news media. You guys have already seen how Glenn Greenwald, Matt Taibbi, who is a lefty, Barry Weiss, Michael Schellenberger, these are all people who are in the media, so to speak. Glenn Greenwald, too, you know. And I'm not really very familiar with their work, but they are liberals. Matt Taibbi wrote for Rolling Stone. They were kind of hard on George Bush, all this kind of stuff. And now they are totally eschewing the left-wing, crazy, woke mob. And it's happening in many different areas where a lot of mainstream Democrats and even some journalists are now saying, you know, we might find Trump acceptable here to the destructive left. I mean, and self-destructive left. I mean, you've got, as I said earlier, with Walz's wife promoting tampons in boys' bathrooms and all the garbage that Kamala Harris has been slinging, if she has any explanation for her policies at all. But all the stuff they've been throwing out there, all the Nazi references, I'm wondering if you're starting to get the same feeling I am, that this group of people entertaining the whole Nazi rally stuff, Trump is fascist, are really a very small group of people. They just happen to have bigger voices on Twitter or even in the news media for that matter. But they're a small group of people. What you're not maybe calculating is people who are normal, average, everyday liberals who are finding themselves slowly but surely moving into an acceptance of Donald Trump, and maybe even, for that matter, a preference to him. Because once you start doing all this transgender women in sports stuff, castrations of young people to change their sexes, unlimited abortion, and policies that are increasing crime, that are endangering everybody, including the border. You've had some liberals killed by illegal aliens. Some of them people who have mocked Trump before. I know that one case in New York. And so invariably, they're being sucked into becoming victims of policies they previously supported. And I'm not quite sure how many people are really ultimately going to accept that. I mean, to support open borders, you have to be unusually nutsoid and self-destructive and not caring a whit about your community or anything else. And I will do this because I think maybe you'll disagree with me, but I give some of these liberals a lot more credit than maybe some other people give them, because I think in the background, a Trump presidency really isn't as much a threat to them as is being said. And news media and all these other guys, yeah, maybe. But in the end, you're looking at a situation where we're seeing a lot of kind of mainstream forces in journalism and otherwise kind of like going, I don't know. Trump doesn't seem really that bad. I mean, one of them, of course, is the Anna Kasparian, who was on the Turk show, the Young Turk show, and Cenk Uygur and all these guys. We're all left-wing nuts, crazies. Well, Anna Kasparian discovered that she's not welcome in the overly woke left-wing tent anymore because she has differing opinions about certain things where she kind of got canceled. And now she's maybe not in the total Trump camp, but she's recognizing that the right, if you want to call it that, is really not the right wing that people are trying to portray it to be. Here she is being interviewed on a podcast. Here's what she had to say.
That the right is winning. I think there's a reason why, if you look at voter registration, for the first time, there are fewer registered Democrats in America compared to, registered Republicans. But that's not because they're registering as Republicans. It's because they're no longer registering as Democrats and just they're independent voters. They consider themselves independent voters. That's a problem within the Democratic Party that I think they need to come to terms with and maybe change their behavior so it stops happening. But
less
the thing that's been
less elitist.
Exactly. And it's actually been the most shocking to me that they are unwilling to recalibrate in any way, ever.
Every single person I know who I'm friends with from the left, this is probably their number one gripe internally. And it's the thing that everybody has to sort of say quietly. Like, I can't actually talk about it fully because even calling out the fact that there is an elephant in the room is enough of a problem to cause you to be casting that the unreliable ally radar kicks off.
And so this guy is saying with Anna Kasparian, in our group among the left-wing people, we actually think some of these people are really actually nuts. They're not good for us. And they're destroying any hopes of us actually getting the good stuff we want done, because everybody's so busy talking about transgenders in sports because that's what they're trying to push, or transgender, government-paid sex changes and open borders that are destroying inner cities and hurting our black brothers, all this kind of stuff. And so these are two kind of liberal people talking amongst themselves saying, these, and as Anna Kasparian points out, with the left, there's no recalibration at all. I mean, to our credit, on the Republican side, I think we have recalibrated in a very grand and important way. And some of our recalibration is coming not from changing our values, and even for that matter, our philosophies, but maturing in our common sense conservatism. So back in the day, when you had the Bush and America, and then suddenly you're sending people to die at all costs, and then you realize it was a lie, and you're thinking, wait a minute here. So that's not a recalibration to making a weaker America. That's a recalibration to making a stronger America by not constantly wandering in to unjust or unnecessary wars and bowing to the military-industrial complex. So I think that we haven't changed our values, whether it be life or whatever, on crime, on the border, whatever, but we have freed ourselves and are much more mature in our common sense conservatism than the Republicans are right now. And so the establishment Republicans. Anna Kasparian also points out, there's this really huge rise in Republican registrations and a dip in Democrat registrations. And he says that's not because people are fewer Democrats necessarily. It's just fewer people who identify with the Democrat Party and will register as Republicans. That's happening. And so when you're getting this kind of breakthrough, you have to imagine it. Some of these people, they might be voting for Trump just to kind of see if they could fumigate their own ranks and put those people to sleep. And have them lose just so they can go away. Because if Kamala Harris were to win, then all the left-wing kooks that don't even represent some people in the Democrat Party or even some people on the left, they win. You get draconian changes in policy and changes in government that will destroy this country. And I think even some liberals are like, I don't know. I don't want my country destroyed. I don't want to have black people in Chicago hating me because I voted for somebody who's okay with a wide open border that has resulted in the destruction of their communities. I don't want to be blamed for this. And so there's a strong possibility that actually could happen. Where just to save their party or to save themselves, they're going to go ahead and kickstart Donald Trump. And then the Democrat Party has to go back and learn and relearn and recalibrate and reinvent itself, much like the Republican Party has had. Sometimes being in a situation where you are on the losing end or having something bad happen to you that kind of cuts you off at the knees, in order for you to build back up, you got to change and you got to mature and get better. I've been through that plenty of times. And sometimes, being stressed and not always winning actually builds character for people. And so I think we've already done that. I think President Trump is a great example of the maturation of our conservatism mixed in with our common sense. And I'm really super happy about how the Republican Party is now in a Trump way. And I think that a lot of Democrats are very unhappy with a Democrat Party that is in the Kamala way, because they consider Kamala to be a threat to their future, because she very much could be. Because they are a destructive people. And again, they don't want to be blamed for the destructive nature of the Democrat Party policies. And there are a lot of people on the left who have near and dear issues. And it might be economic. It might be tax the rich. It might be this kind of stuff. But they're never going to get anywhere with a party that just obsesses over calling people racist and Nazis and supporting transgender men in sport, women's sports, and all this kind of stuff. They're never going to get any of their more liberal, straight, meat and potatoes policies off the ground because they're being buried by wickedness and stupidity. And I think some even people on the left are like, I don't know about this, Here's another interesting one. This is Konstantin Kisin, and he kind of does a tongue-in-cheek report on my shocking report from inside Trump's Nazi rally. Here's what he had to say.
Read reports from the mainstream media about the Nazi rally President Trump held at New York's iconic Madison Square Garden last night. Many of these articles appear to have been written by journalists who wisely avoided the menacing event and reported on it from the safety of their basements. I'm not a real journalist, however, so having read that literally Hitler was gathering some sort of America's worst reprobates in the heart of New York for a rally of hate, I did something very old-fashioned. I went to see it with my own eyes. And what I witnessed at the event was truly shocking. By the time I arrived at midday, people had been standing in line since the early morning. The diversity of Nazis on display was unbelievable. Black Nazis, Latino Nazis, Asian Nazis, white Nazis, female Nazis, and lots of Jewish Nazis were all assembled in an orderly line, chatting politely to each other and cracking jokes. It was terrifying. Across the road, kept at bay by the few police who sadly haven't been defunded yet, was a handful of mostly peaceful protesters. They were there to save democracy by demanding that the democratically elected leader of one of America's two major parties be thrown in prison. In contrast with the fascists I found myself among, whose amicable and respectful demeanor was truly outrageous, the peaceful anti-hate protesters were angry and confrontational, screaming in the faces of those of us standing in line. "Enjoy your Nazi rally!" one furious man courageously shouted at a family with young children. Despite these attempts to save democracy from the voters, after several hours of queuing, we eventually made it inside where the horror show truly began. Reminiscent of Adolf Hitler's rallies, the event opened with a stand-up comedian telling a few jokes. Straight out of the Nazi playbook, that was. The hateful comic made fun of everyone. Celebrities, Israelis, Palestinians, even Puerto Ricans. It made me want to reach for a comfort animal, but the closest person to me was a woman in a hijab, and I didn't want to commit a hate crime by hugging her without consent. By the time I came to my senses, a radio personality called Sid Rosenberg was on stage. Rosenberg, I thought to myself, typical Nazi name. He had apparently just returned from Israel, which he claimed both he and President Trump support. I couldn't help noticing that every time he mentioned Israel, the Nazi scum, who had by this point filled the stadium to the rafters, cheered and clapped. "This is just like one of Hitler's rallies," I said to a man next to me who was wearing some sort of skull cap. He laughed as if I'd said something funny and resumed cheering, holding up his bigoted Jews for Trump sign. A succession of other prominent speakers followed, all of whom made terrible, offensive comments like, "We love America. America's the greatest country in the world." And ask yourself, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago?
So you get the picture here. And of course, anybody who watches this, and this guy's really kind of center right, that kind of guy. Anybody who watches this understands just how ridiculous and stupid the people who are on the far left are, and the media in general, like the Nazi rally stuff. And you got to understand that it's really interesting how the left wing, even the sensible people, there are sensible people who are left of center. I don't agree with their policies and everything else, but they're not around calling people Nazis and everything else. Similarly, if you look at gay people or the gay community, there's a small number of gay people who will actually sue a cake maker for not making them a cake for their wedding. Very small number of people. There's a very small number of gay people, and even for that matter, some transgender people who really believe that it's okay to have transvestite drag shows in kids' schools. Very few people. And yet the media and others, they actually want us to believe that that's the majority of gays. And so they're doing more damage to the gays than they are to Donald Trump or anybody else, or even the cake maker for that matter. And so even gay people are kind of like, what is he doing that's homophobic? I mean, if anything, what you guys are doing is putting a target on our back by insinuating that we all support men and women's sports and tampons in bathrooms and, it's all these crazy things. And they don't want to have anything to do with it. And so the only way to actually, this guy talked about, the guy earlier talked about the elephant in the room. Well, the only way really to get rid of the elephant in the room is to kill it. Put it away. Send it to pasture. Bury it in the ground. Put it in quicksand. And so to me, there's a factor here that I don't think we necessarily have accounted for. That there are a lot of Democrats, a lot of liberals, and even people on the left who are just sick and tired of the Kamala Harris Biden nonsense, the woke elites, and all the crazies. And they're tired of them, but they can't get rid of them. They don't know how to get rid of them. Well, the one way they can get rid of him is by helping Trump win. That will bury the Democrat Party for a long time until it resurges as a different beast. And so what I said before, 2016, if Trump hadn't won that election, the Republican Party would have been dead. It wouldn't have won another election for decades. Trump saved the Republican Party, but the only way the Republican Party was saved is by a regeneration of its ideas and obviously its leaders. And we're there now. The Democrat Party is probably going to be there after Tuesday, and they're going to have to be in that situation where they die off before they can live again. That's just how it works. All right, people, live again. Oh, at Johnny's Hideout. Thank you, Rick Pogue, for being on the air with me yesterday. I just want to be able to read this website to you because I want to make sure you get to it so you can see all the music that's playing here at Johnny's Hideout over the weekend. If you go to Johnny's Hideout STL on Facebook, great, jhideout.com on the web, and you'll see all the schedules. You'll see all the menu up there. You'll see all the goings on at Johnny's Hideout. We're right there in High Ridge, just 10 minutes from 270 in Gravois. Super easy to get to from every place and any place you happen to be. 40 TVs for college football, national NFL football, and also, ladies and gentlemen, the great food. I mean, Rick and his gang, they took a lot of time in trying to create the best pizza they could possibly find anywhere in the land. And they did, and they have it at Johnny's Hideout right now, and it is great. Barbecue chicken pizza, I got the taco pizza, chicken Alfredo pizza, and, of course, all the usual, pepperoni, sausage, all that kind of stuff that you want. Also, the great wings, a great staff, great drinks, coldest beer you're going to find anywhere in the land. It's all at Johnny's Hideout, a proud sponsor of free, common sense, conservative radio. The Allman Report on News Talk STL.
You're listening to the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
Seemingly describing Trump's.
So this is. Oh shoot! You know what? You know what I did? I didn't push my music, so I'm going to do this. There we go. That's how it works, people. You just recover. It's all in the recovery, Ethan. It's one of the big mistakes people make is when they make a mistake, they make more mistakes trying to correct things. And when you make a mistake like I just did, where I pushed a soundbite I wanted to play instead of my music, you just do it over again. And do it over again and let people watch you do it over again. Because I'm not fooling anybody. Ethan's like, I'd rather you did it over again. But
it's a masterful recovery.
Again,
It's a masterful recovery.
You just tell people what's going on and roll with it, That is true a lot of times. What was the one? Oh, I can't do it now, but the 7 there's the 7 words you can't say on radio, and then what's funny is there's a recording. I don't know who did it, but the person that cusses, and then the person says, "Oh blank, I just said blank." Oh blank, I just said blank and blank, and so they keep on compounding the problem, and instead you just kind of just roll with it. All right, so Frank Luntz is not a Trump lover by any stretch of the imagination. And in fact, he sometimes can even be a pain in the rear for Donald Trump and a Trump detractor in a lot of ways. He's on CNN and he's saying that, this Biden garbage comment was so bad that Biden might have actually lost the election for Kamala. I'm not quite sure that Frank Luntz's motivation here is to really attack Biden as much as it is to make excuses for Kamala Harris when she loses. And so some of this might be a mixture of injecting a built-in excuse for failure, and they'll blame it on Biden, just like they're blaming everything on Biden. They move him out, do everything. There's no question that comment was terrible and maybe even a motivating factor. But I also have to say, as bad as it was and as fun as we've had exploiting it and everything else, I think the election was over before this. But just for good measure, Luntz is saying, this probably killed her campaign once and for all.
His comments seemingly describing Trump supporters as, quote, garbage. The Harris campaign is trying to downplay the effect of those comments. Of course they are. But I wonder if you think that those comments are going to move voters.
It's going to be huge because this is not some comedian saying something stupid and offensive at a rally where he should have been basically disinvited. This is the president of the United States endorsing his vice president saying something. And I know that there's different interpretations about what he said. It's still inappropriate. You still shouldn't be doing it. And I've watched Trump already seize this. The basket of deplorables was significant, was meaningful in 2016. In 2024, I can promise you that this is going to drive Trump turnout. He's doing it already. I can see, I'm sure there's going to be ads on as soon as tonight about this. This may be a turning point for those final 3%, and that's all it is, who still need to be persuaded.
Yeah, and I think he's right about that. And I also think that there's an element here of I can't imagine anybody sitting on the sidelines for this election. I just can't imagine anybody doing that. But the reality is there are people who are like, man, I don't know. Just going to see what happens, but I'm not motivated one way or the other. That this could actually be a hugely motivating factor to some people who are sitting on the sidelines. Oh, I got you. Okay, well, I'll show you then at that point. So there's no way that this is not going to have some effect, but it's pretty bad. And if Frank Luntz is the one who's calling it, and he's no Trump fan, that could be a real problem for them on Tuesday. And finally, so Jamie Raskin has a plan that he made clear earlier this year. And they have a plan to basically have their own insurrection. Now, you know that Jamie Raskin in the past has called all election deniers insurrectionists. But he's also preparing for their own little insurrection. Listen to this tweet of his, this quote of his. It's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025, to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified, and then we need bodyguards for everybody in Civil War conditions. This is a comment he made on February 17th of 2024.
It's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025, to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified, and then we need bodyguards for everybody in Civil War conditions, all because.
So, Raskin, if you really want to be in this situation, they want to make this go to Congress. They want to make this go to the House, and this is basically so he says. So they want to kick it into Congress, so it's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025 to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified. So basically, Raskin and these other people are trying to create a plan to where the election isn't decided and must be then decided by Congress. Oh my goodness, that will be a crazy ass situation, if that's a situation. I don't think it's going to be that close, but Raskin is already preparing for it and indeed hoping for it. So they're more than not even worried about making a mockery of their whole January 6th narrative. It's really crazy. So if the House somehow disqualifies President Trump as a president, you know that at that point, if he's elected, J.D. Vance would likely become president. So Raskin's plan is already screwed up. But the reality is these guys are already preparing to try and take this away from Donald Trump if he winds up winning, which I think he will. You know they're going to figure out a way. After all their garbage about January 6th and everything else, you know they're going to figure out a way. Jamie Raskin was the one who in 2017 was wanting to throw out the results of the election the same way, but he just didn't have a sponsor in the Senate, which you needed to have, in where he wanted to do the audits of the states and all that kind of stuff. So he had the same idea that other people had in 2017. No one mentions that. This guy was like head of the damn January 6th committee along with Liz Cheney and that kind of stuff. And nobody realizes he did the same thing in 2017. So just beware. I did talk to somebody. I was like, excited about Tuesday? He goes, yeah, I guess I'm more worried about Wednesday and Thursday. And I think I know what he means. But we'll keep our chin up and keep happy here on this Halloween night. Thank you for joining me. Ethan Valencia, thank you so much for being you. And you guys have a rest of your happy Halloween night and a blessed one.